of 19th century America, fields, factories, and enslaved people working on plantations. Narrator, deep cinematic tone. In the year 1861, the United States of America, once a symbol of liberty and unity, was torn apart by its greatest internal conflict, the American Civil War. It was a war not just fought with guns and cannons, but with ideals, identity, and the soul of a nation at stake. This is the story of how America went to war against itself, of brothers turned into enemies, and of a bloody fight that decided the fate of freedom. For decades before 1861, the United States stood divided in two worlds: the North, industrial, modernizing, and moving toward progress, and the South, agrarian, traditional, and built on the cruel backbone of slavery. The northern states had largely abolished slavery, but in the South, millions of African Americans were enslaved, treated as property to sustain the booming cotton economy. Tensions grew with every passing year. Every new state added to the Union raised one burning question: would it allow slavery or forbid it? In 1860, a tall, determined man named Abraham Lincoln was elected president. He opposed the spread of slavery into new territories, and that was enough to ignite fury in the South. Before Lincoln could even take office, 7 southern states seceded from the Union. They formed their own government, the Confederate States of America, led by Jefferson Davis. The Union, the rest of the states loyal to Washington, refused to recognize the Confederacy. And when Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter in South Carolina on April 12, 1861, the American Civil War had begun. The Union, under President Lincoln, fought to preserve the United States. The Confederacy, under President Davis, fought for independence and the right to uphold slavery. Both sides expected a short conflict. They were wrong. The war would rage for 4 brutal years, claiming more American lives than any other war in the nation's history. The North had more factories, more men, and a stronger navy. The South had fierce generals and the advantage of fighting on their own land. 2 names would define the battlefields: Ulysses S. Grant for the Union and Robert E. Lee for the Confederacy. The first major battle came at Bull Run, Virginia, in July 1861. Spectators came to watch, expecting a quick Northern victory. But they fled in terror as Confederate forces triumphed. The war had just begun, and already America realized it would not end easily. For the next year, battles raged across states like Tennessee, Virginia, and Mississippi. Blood flowed on fields with names that would forever echo in history: Shiloh, Antietam, Fredericksburg. In 1863, Lincoln took a bold step that would change the course of history. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all enslaved people in Confederate territories were free. The war was no longer just about preserving the Union. It had become a fight for human freedom. African Americans, once enslaved, now joined the Union Army. By the war's end, nearly 200,000 black soldiers had fought for the cause of liberty. In July 1863, the 2 armies met in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It was one of the most ferocious battles in history. For 3 days, thunder roared, the ground shook, and tens of thousands fell. When the smoke cleared, over 50,000 soldiers were dead or wounded. It was a Union victory, and the tide began to turn. A few months later, standing on that blood-soaked ground, Lincoln delivered his immortal Gettysburg Address, a speech of only 272 words that redefined the meaning of the war. That government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. By 1864, the Union's strategy was relentless. General William Tecumseh Sherman marched through Georgia, destroying Confederate infrastructure in his infamous March to the Sea. Meanwhile, Grant pressed Lee S. Army across Virginia in a brutal series of battles known as the Overland Campaign. The South was collapsing. Supplies were gone, cities burned, and the Confederate Army was surrounded. On April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The war was finally over, the Confederacy crumbled, and the United States, though scarred and bleeding, had survived. Just days later, on April 14th, tragedy struck. President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by a Southern sympathizer, John Wilkes Booth, at Ford's Theater. The nation that he had fought to save now mourned the man who gave it hope. When the guns fell silent, Over 620,000 soldiers were dead. Cities lay in ruins. Families were shattered. But slavery, the evil that had divided the nation, was abolished forever. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution officially ended slavery in the United States. It was a victory of freedom over oppression. But the road to true equality was far from over. The Civil War reshaped the United States. It forged a stronger union, one that would rise from the ashes to become one of the most powerful nations in history. It taught the world that freedom demands sacrifice, that democracy must sometimes bleed to survive, and that even in division the spirit of unity can prevail. Narrator, final words, cinematic closing tone. From the fires of war, a new America was born, an America built not on chains, but on liberty. This was the American Civil War, a battle for the heart of a nation, and a story that still echoes through the soul of history.